Hi, my name is Jadio, your host. Welcome to our channel, Bible Study and Meditation. Our discussion today is on the biblical significance of Gaza. The relationship between the Bible and Gaza is deeply rooted in ancient history, with Gaza mentioned multiple times in both the Old and New Testaments. This exploration highlights key biblical references and themes involving Gaza, as well as its connection to patriarchs like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, leading up to Joshua and the tribe of Judah. Gaza is identified as a Philistine city and one of the 5 major strongholds of the Philistines, the others being Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. Although Gaza was included in the territory assigned to the tribe of Judah after the Israelites entered the Promised Land, they were unable to fully conquer the Philistines in the book of Joshua chapter 13 verse 3. From the Shihor River on the east of Egypt to the territory of Ekron on the north, all of it counted as Canaanite, the territory of the 5 Philistine rulers in Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, that of the Avites. Why Gaza is significant for Christians for several reasons. Cultural and religious heritage. The region has a rich cultural and religious history, contributing to the broader context of Christianity's development in the Holy Land. Contemporary issues. Understanding Gaza is crucial for grasping current geopolitical and humanitarian issues in the region, which often impact Christian communities and interfaith relations. Pilgrimage and tourism. For many Christians, Gaza and its surroundings are part of the pilgrimage to the Holy Land, linking them to their faith's historical roots. Social justice. Many Christians are engaged in social justice issues related to Gaza, advocating for peace and humanitarian aid, which is central to many Christian teachings. Studying Gaza helps provide a deeper understanding of the historical, spiritual, and contemporary complexities of the region. Gaza in the New Testament. Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. In the New Testament, Gaza appears in Acts 8:26-40, where Philip, an early Christian leader, was led by an angel to the desert road from Jerusalem to Gaza. There, he encountered and baptized an Ethiopian eunuch, illustrating Gaza's role in the spread of Christianity. And the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise, and go toward the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert. And he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure, and had come to Jerusalem for to worship, was returning, and sitting in his chariot read Esaias the prophet. Then the Spirit said unto Philip, Go near, and join thyself to this chariot. And Philip ran thither to him, and heard him read the prophet Esaias, and said, Understandest thou what thou readest? And he said, How can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him. The place of the scripture which he read was this: He was led as a sheep to the slaughter, and like a lamb dumb before his shearer, so opened he not his mouth. In his humiliation his judgment was taken away, and who shall declare his generation? For his life is taken from the earth. And the eunuch answered Philip, and said, I pray thee, of whom speaketh the prophet this? Of himself, or of some other man? Then Philip opened his mouth, and began at the same scripture, and preached unto him Jesus. And as they went on their way, they came unto a certain water, and the eunuch said, See, here is water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? And Philip said, If thou believest with all thine heart, thou mayest. And he answered and said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And he commanded the chariot to stand still, and they went down both into the water, both Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized him. And when they were come up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord caught away Philip, that the eunuch saw him no more, and he went on his way rejoicing. But Philip was found at Azotus, and passing through he preached in all the cities, till he came to Caesarea. The Bible portrays Gaza as a place of conflict, judgment, and transformation. On one hand, it was a center of opposition to the Israelites and later subject to divine judgment for its sins. On the other hand, in the New Testament, it becomes a backdrop for the spread of the gospel and the spiritual transformation of an individual from Ethiopia. These stories reveal how Gaza is part of the larger biblical narrative of struggle, judgment, and redemption. The tribes of Israel and Gaza, Jacob's 12 sons, became the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel. When the Israelites, led by Joshua, entered the Promised Land after their exodus from Egypt, Gaza was part of the land allocated to the tribe of Judah. Joshua 15:20-47. However, Ashdod with her towns and her villages, Gaza with her towns and her villages, unto the river of Egypt and the great sea and the borders thereof. The Israelites struggled to fully conquer the Philistine territories, including Gaza, and these cities remained strongholds of opposition. Over time, the Philistines, including those in Gaza, became powerful enemies of Israel. The tension between the Israelites, Jacob's descendants, and the Philistines continued throughout the period of the Judges and the monarchy, especially in the stories of Samson and King David. The Philistine oppression and future conflict. The Philistines, who controlled Gaza, were one of Israel's main enemies during the time of the Judges and early kings. Gaza became a significant Philistine city, but it was part of the land Jacob's descendants were supposed to inherit. This ongoing conflict between Israel and the Philistines reflects the difficulty Jacob's descendants faced in fully claiming the land promised to them. Conquest of Canaan. Joshua was commanded by God to conquer the land of Canaan, which included the Philistine territories. Gaza was one of the major Philistine cities, and while Joshua's campaigns were extensive, they did not fully subdue all Philistine strongholds, including Gaza. In Joshua 10:40-41, it is recorded that Joshua struck down the southern regions of Canaan from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza. This suggests that Joshua's forces likely advanced toward Gaza, but they did not take complete control of the city. The Philistines continued to inhabit Gaza and the surrounding coastal regions even after Joshua's campaigns. Allotment of the land to the tribe of Judah. After Joshua's military campaigns, the land was divided among the 12 tribes of Israel. Gaza was part of the territory allotted to the tribe of Judah. Joshua 15:20-47. This means that, on paper, Gaza was supposed to be part of the inheritance for the people of Judah, but in practice, the Philistines remained in control of the city for many generations. The Bible notes that while the land was allocated, the Israelites were unable to fully drive out the Philistines from key cities like Gaza. This would become a recurring issue for the Israelites, who struggled with Philistine opposition during the time of the Judges and early kings. Unfinished business. Joshua 13:1-3 records that even after many of Joshua's successful military campaigns, there were still large areas of Canaan that had not yet been conquered, including the Philistine territories. Gaza is mentioned alongside Ashdod and Ashkelon as one of the cities that had yet to be taken. God reminded Joshua that there was still much land to be possessed, and this included the regions along the Mediterranean coast where the Philistines lived. Joshua's conquest was significant, but it was incomplete when it came to fully subduing Gaza and the other Philistine cities. Unfinished business. Joshua 13:1-3 records that even after many of Joshua's successful military campaigns, now Joshua was old and stricken in years. And the Lord said unto him, Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed. This is the land that yet remaineth, all the borders of the Philistines, and all Geshuri, from Sihor, which is before Egypt, even unto the borders of Ekron northward, which is counted to the Canaanite, 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazathites and the Ashdothites, the Ashkelonites, the Gittites and the Ekronites, also the Avites. There were still large areas of Canaan that had not yet been conquered, including the Philistine territories. Gaza is mentioned alongside Ashdod and Ashkelon as one of the cities that had yet to be taken. God reminded Joshua that there was still much land to be possessed, and this included the regions along the Mediterranean coast where the Philistines lived. Joshua's conquest was significant, but it was incomplete when it came to fully subduing Gaza and the other Philistine cities. Long-term conflict. Gaza continued to be a stronghold of the Philistines, leading to frequent conflicts between the Philistines and the Israelites. This tension is most famously illustrated in the story of Samson, who fought against the Philistines and had his final showdown in Gaza. Judges 16. The ongoing Philistine presence in Gaza is a direct result of the Israelites' inability to fully conquer the city during Joshua's time. Gaza and God's promise. The incomplete conquest of Gaza and other Philistine cities is a reflection of the challenges the Israelites faced in fully realizing the promise of the land given to them by God. While Joshua was a powerful leader who achieved great victories, the struggle to secure Gaza highlights that some promises would take longer to be fulfilled and would require the efforts of future generations. Foreshadowing future conflicts, the fact that Gaza remained in Philistine hands after Joshua's time foreshadows the continuous conflict between Israel and the Philistines, particularly in the period of the Judges and the early monarchy. Joshua's campaigns laid the groundwork for Israel's dominance in much of the land, but cities like Gaza represented unfinished battles that would challenge the nation for centuries. While Joshua's conquest reached toward Gaza, the city was not fully taken during his lifetime. It was part of the land allocated to the tribe of Judah, but the Philistines maintained control of Gaza, setting the stage for future conflicts. Joshua's efforts marked an important step in Israel's allotment of Gaza to the tribe of Judah. After the conquest of Canaan led by Joshua, the land was divided among the 12 tribes of Israel. The tribe of Judah, one of the most prominent tribes, received a large portion of land in the southern region of Canaan, which included Gaza and the surrounding coastal areas. Joshua 15:20-47 explicitly mentions Gaza as part of the inheritance given to the tribe of Judah. The borders of Judah's territory extended to the Mediterranean Sea, and Gaza, along with other key Philistine cities like Ashdod and Ekron, was within its borders. Philistine stronghold in Gaza. Although Gaza was allotted to the tribe of Judah, it remained under Philistine control. The Philistines, who were a significant military power in the region, had established Gaza as one of their 5 main city-states, along with Ashdod, Ashkelon, Ekron, and Gath. The Israelites were unable to fully conquer Gaza during the initial conquest of the land, as noted in Judges 1:18-19. While the tribe of Judah had initial victories in the hill country, they struggled to take control of the coastal areas and the cities controlled by the Philistines due to their advanced military technology, particularly their iron chariots. Gaza as a site of conflict. The ongoing presence of the Philistines in Gaza led to a long history of conflict between the tribe of Judah and the Philistines. Gaza became a major site of warfare during the time of the Judges and continued to be a symbol of Philistine resistance to Israelite rule. One of the most famous stories involving Gaza is the story of Samson, a judge from the tribe of Dan who frequently fought against the Philistines. In Judges 16, Samson was captured by the Philistines in Gaza after being betrayed by Delilah. He was imprisoned there, and later, in an act of final vengeance, he brought down the Philistine temple in Gaza, killing many Philistines along with himself. The tribe of Judah, like the other Israelite tribes, faced ongoing battles with the Philistines, and Gaza remained a Philistine stronghold for much of Israel's early history. Philistine threat during the time of the kings, the struggle between Judah and Gaza continued into the period of the Israelite monarchy. King David, from the tribe of Judah, famously defeated the Philistines in several battles, weakening their control over much of the land, but cities like Gaza remained key Philistine centers of power. Later, during the reign of King Solomon, the Philistine threat diminished as Israel's power grew, but Gaza remained part of the Philistine territories. Even after David's and Solomon's successes, the Philistines continued to resist Israelite dominance. Prophetic judgments against Gaza. The Bible also includes prophetic judgments against Gaza. The prophets often spoke against the Philistines and their cities, including Gaza, for their oppression of Israel. For instance, Amos 1:6-7 and Zephaniah 2:4 both speak of God's coming judgment on Gaza and the other Philistine cities for their violent actions against the Israelites. These prophetic judgments reflected the ongoing tension between the Israelites, particularly the tribe of Judah, and the Philistines who controlled Gaza. Unrealized inheritance. The fact that Gaza was included in the territory allotted to Judah but remained unconquered reflects the larger biblical theme of unrealized inheritance. The Israelites, despite their conquests under Joshua, were unable to fully claim the land promised to them by God. Gaza became a symbol of this incomplete mission. The Philistines' control over Gaza was a persistent thorn in the side of Judah and the rest of Israel. Despite their victories elsewhere, they struggled to fully drive out the Philistines from key strongholds. Conflict and God's judgment. The ongoing conflict between Judah and the Philistines, particularly in Gaza, became a focal point of divine judgment in the biblical narrative. The eventual destruction of Gaza by various invaders, including the Assyrians and Babylonians, is seen as part of God's plan to bring justice for the Philistines' oppression of Israel. The tribe of Judah was given control over Gaza as part of its territorial inheritance, but the city remained under Philistine control for much of Israel's early history. Gaza was a key site of conflict between the Israelites and the Philistines, and the tribe of Judah faced ongoing challenges in fully conquering the city. Gaza's presence as a Philistine stronghold highlights the theme of unrealized inheritance and continued struggle for the land promised by God. Despite this, Gaza's eventual destruction was foretold by the prophets, reflecting God's ultimate plan for judgment against Israel's enemies. Let's look at key points about Samson and Gaza. Samson's visit to Gaza, Judges 16:1-3, describes how Samson visited Gaza and stayed there with a prostitute. The Philistines, knowing that Samson was in the city, plotted to capture him, surrounding the city gates to trap him in the morning. However, Samson woke up in the middle of the night, tore the city gates from their hinges, carried them on his shoulders, and took them to the top of a hill near Hebron. This incident demonstrated Samson's extraordinary strength and his ability to outmaneuver his enemies. Gaza, as a Philistine stronghold, symbolized Philistine power, but Samson's dramatic removal of the city gates was a direct challenge to their authority and a reminder of Israel's divinely empowered leader. The gates of Gaza, the gates of ancient cities, were heavily fortified, symbolizing the strength and security of the city. By tearing off the gates of Gaza and carrying them away, Samson humiliated the Philistines, showing that their city's defenses were no match for his God-given strength. Samson's act of removing Gaza's gates can also be seen as symbolic. Gates represent barriers and protection, and Samson's removal of them demonstrated his ability to overcome the Philistine strongholds, both literally and figuratively. It foreshadowed his ongoing battles with the Philistines. Samson's final captivity in Gaza, Judges 16:21-30. Later in Samson's story, after being betrayed by Delilah, the Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and brought him to Gaza, where they imprisoned him, Judges 16:21. In Gaza, Samson was forced to grind grain in a prison, a task that symbolized his fall from power and his humiliation at the hands of the Philistine. Samson's final act in Gaza, in one of the most dramatic moments in the Bible, Samson, while in the temple of Dagon in Gaza, prayed to God for strength one last time. As the Philistine leaders and thousands of people were gathered on the roof of the temple, Samson grasped the two central pillars that supported the building and pulled them down, collapsing the temple on himself and everyone inside. In his final act, Samson killed more Philistines in his death than he did in his life, Judges 16:30. This destruction of the temple in Gaza was a powerful symbol of the defeat of the Philistines and demonstrated that, despite his failings, Samson fulfilled his divine mission to begin delivering Israel from Philistine oppression, Judges 13:5. Gaza, as the setting for this final act, represents the heart of Philistine power, and Samson's destruction of the temple in Gaza marked a significant blow to the Philistine leadership. Samson's strength and weakness. Samson's interactions with Gaza showcase both his extraordinary strength and his weaknesses. His physical strength was a direct gift from God, symbolizing Israel's potential to overcome their enemies through divine empowerment. Yet, his personal weaknesses, particularly his attraction to Philistine women and his eventual betrayal by Delilah, also led to his downfall. Gaza became the place where Samson's weaknesses were fully exposed and where he faced the consequences of his disobedience. His captivity in Gaza symbolized Israel's own subjugation to the Philistines during this period. Gaza as a symbol of Philistine power. Gaza was one of the 5 main Philistine cities, and as such, it symbolized the strength and dominance of the Philistines over Israel during the time of the Judges. The Philistines, who controlled much of the coastal regions of Israel, were a constant source of oppression. The events in Gaza, including Samson's removal of the city gates and his final destruction of the temple, show that even the Philistine strongholds could be brought down by God's chosen deliverer. Gaza's significance as a Philistine city highlights the scale of Samson's victories against Israel's enemies. Samson's redemption in Gaza. Samson's story ends in Gaza, but it is also a story of redemption. Despite his failings, Samson's final prayer for strength shows his return to God, and his last act of destroying the temple of Dagon represents his fulfillment of God's purpose for his life. The destruction of the temple in Gaza also has theological significance. The Philistines attributed their success to their god Dagon, but Samson's final act demonstrated that the God of Israel was ultimately in control. Samson's death in Gaza served as a reminder of God's sovereignty over all nations and their false gods. Foreshadowing future conflict, the destruction of the Philistine temple in Gaza by Samson did not end the Philistine threat, but it was a significant victory. The Philistines continued to oppress Israel after Samson's death, and the conflict between Israel and the Philistines would persist for generations. Gaza, as a Philistine stronghold, would remain an important city in future conflicts, including during the reigns of Saul and David, who would continue to battle against the Philistines. Samson's connection to Gaza is one of the most memorable parts of his story. His visit to Gaza, where he removed the city's gates, and his final act of destroying the Philistine temple in Gaza are key events that highlight both his extraordinary strength and the consequences of his personal failings. Gaza, as a major Philistine city, symbolizes the power of Israel's enemies, but through Samson's acts, particularly his destruction of the temple, Gaza also becomes a place where God's power is ultimately displayed. Despite his weaknesses, Samson's final victory in Gaza marked a significant blow to the Philistines and demonstrated God's ability to deliver Israel even through flawed leaders. King David and Gaza are not directly connected in many detailed biblical stories, but David's broader military campaigns and his relationship with the Philistines, who controlled Gaza, are crucial for understanding the historical and spiritual significance of the city during his reign. Philistines and Gaza during David's time. Gaza was one of the 5 main cities of the Philistines, along with Ashdod, Ashkelon, Ekron, and Gath. These cities were powerful city-states, and the Philistines were among the most persistent enemies of Israel during the time of King Saul and King David. David's military victories against the Philistines significantly weakened their power, but Gaza itself is not specifically mentioned in relation to his battles. However, as a major Philistine stronghold, Gaza would have been indirectly affected by David's campaigns, as he subdued much of Philistine territory during his reign. David's time among the Philistines before becoming king. David spent time living among the Philistines while fleeing from King Saul. He sought refuge with Achish, the king of Gath, one of the 5 Philistine cities. 1 Samuel 27. Although David was based in Gath during this time, his actions would have affected the broader Philistine region, including Gaza. During his time in exile, David and his men conducted raids on various enemies of Israel, though he cleverly deceived the Philistines about his actual targets. This period shows David's complex relationship with the Philistines before his rise to power. David's conquest of Philistine territory. After becoming king, David successfully expanded Israel's territory and reduced the influence of the Philistines. In 2 Samuel 5:17-25, David decisively defeated the Philistines in the valley of Rephaim and pursued them to Jeba and Gezer, key areas near the Philistine heartland. 2 Samuel 8:1 mentions that David subdued the Philistines and took control of the Metheg-Ammah. Some scholars believe that Metheg-Ammah could refer to Gath, another Philistine city, or could symbolize Philistine control in general. This suggests that David extended his dominance over Philistine territory, which would have indirectly affected Gaza as well. Though Gaza itself is not specifically named in these victories, David's widespread conquest of Philistine lands likely included influence over the entire Philistine pentapolis, including Gaza. David's legacy and the Philistines. David's military campaigns greatly diminished the power of the Philistines, though they were not completely destroyed. The Philistines continued to be a presence in the region, but their influence was significantly reduced during David's reign. Gaza remained a Philistine city after David's time, and it continued to play a role in later Israelite history, particularly during the time of the Judges and the early kings. The city, along with the rest of the Philistine territories, would remain a point of conflict for generations. David's role as the defender of Israel. David is remembered as a king who defended Israel from its enemies, particularly the Philistines. His victories over the Philistines, which would have affected cities like Gaza, symbolize God's favor and protection over Israel. David's success against these long-standing enemies fulfilled part of God's promise to deliver the Israelites from their adversaries. David's military victories also paved the way for the more peaceful reign of his son, Solomon, who was able to focus on building Israel's infrastructure, including the temple in Jerusalem, because of the stability David achieved. Ongoing conflict with the Philistines. Despite David's victories, the Philistines, including those in Gaza, were not entirely destroyed. Their continued presence reflects the ongoing spiritual and physical battles Israel faced in fully claiming the land God promised them. The Philistines, with Gaza as one of their key cities, represented a recurring challenge to Israel's faithfulness and strength. This unresolved tension between Israel and the Philistines would continue to play out in later periods of Israel's history, especially during the time of the Judges and the early monarchy. While King David is not specifically linked to a direct conquest of Gaza, his military campaigns against the Philistines greatly impacted the region, including Gaza. David's victories significantly weakened Philistine power, and his dominance over their territories likely included influence over Gaza, even if the city itself is not mentioned in the biblical texts. Gaza remained a Philistine stronghold during David's reign, but was part of the broader defeat of the Philistines that David accomplished, setting the stage for continued conflict between Israel and Gaza in future generations. Gaza in ancient times. Gaza is one of the oldest cities in the world, mentioned numerous times in the Bible. It was a major city of the Philistines, an ancient people who were often in conflict with the Israelites. In the biblical narrative, the Philistines were adversaries of Israel, and cities like Gaza represented the strength and dominance of this enemy nation. The Philistines controlled Gaza during the time of the Judges, with notable figures like Samson having encounters in the city. Judges 16. The Israelites, led by King David and later King Solomon, eventually subdued the Philistines, leading to a shifting balance of power in the region. Historical context: 1. Roman and Byzantine periods. Following the biblical era, Gaza remained an important city under various empires, including the Roman and Byzantine empires. The region experienced several changes in control and influence throughout the centuries. 2. Islamic conquest. Gaza came under Islamic control during the Arab conquest in the 7th century, becoming part of various caliphates and later Ottoman rule. 3. British Mandate. After World War I, Gaza became part of the British Mandate of Palestine 1920-1948. The period saw increasing tensions between Jewish and Arab communities in the region. Modern context: 1. Creation of Israel. The establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 led to significant conflict in the region, particularly with Arab nations and Palestinian Arabs. During the Arab-Israeli War of 1948, Gaza came under Egyptian control. 2. Six-Day War and aftermath. In the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel captured Gaza from Egypt, along with the West Bank and other territories. This began a prolonged period of military occupation, leading to significant demographic and political changes in the area. The rise of Palestinian nationalism and movements such as the Pro-Palestine Liberation Organization emerged during this time, with Gaza becoming a focal point for Palestinian identity and resistance. 3. Gaza. The Gaza Strip, a narrow piece of land along the Mediterranean coast, has been a center of conflict and humanitarian issues. It is densely populated with a significant Palestinian population. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew its settlements and military from Gaza, but it retained control over its borders, airspace, and maritime access. 4. Hamas control. In 2006, Hamas, a Palestinian militant group, won the elections in Gaza and took full control of the territory in 2007, leading to a split with the Fatah-led Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Since then, Gaza has experienced multiple conflicts with Israel, including major military operations in 2008, 2009, 2012, 2014, and most recently in 2021. These conflicts often result in significant casualties and destruction in Gaza and have exacerbated the humanitarian crisis there. 5. Blockade and humanitarian issues. Israel, citing security concerns regarding Hamas and other militant groups, has imposed a blockade on Gaza since 2007. This blockade has led to severe restrictions on the movement of people and goods, resulting in widespread poverty and humanitarian challenges for the residents of Gaza. The ongoing blockade has contributed to high unemployment rates, limited access to healthcare, and poor living conditions in Gaza, which are critical issues in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 1. Ongoing conflict. The relationship between Israel and Gaza remains tense and marked by periodic outbreaks of violence. Rocket attacks from Gaza into Israel and retaliatory airstrikes by Israel have led to repeated cycles of conflict. Efforts for peace and reconciliation have been complicated by deep-seated mistrust, differing political goals, and the fragmentation of Palestinian leadership. 2. International involvement. The international community has been involved in mediating the conflict, with various countries and organizations advocating for a two-state solution. However, progress has been slow and significant political challenges remain. 3. Humanitarian efforts. Numerous humanitarian organizations work in Gaza to provide aid and support to the Palestinian population. Despite these efforts, access to essential services such as healthcare, clean water, and education remains limited. 4. Cultural identity. Gaza has a rich cultural heritage with historical sites, art, and traditions that reflect its long history. The ongoing conflict, however, continues to overshadow this cultural richness. The relationship between Israel and Gaza is characterized by a complex interplay of historical, political, and cultural factors. From biblical times through modern conflicts, Gaza has been a significant focal point of struggle, identity, and humanitarian challenges. As of 2024, Israel faces a complex landscape marked by significant domestic and international challenges. Key issues include ongoing security concerns, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, economic developments, and internal political dynamics. Domestically, Israel may struggle with political stability, particularly influenced by coalition governments that could impact policy decisions. Economically, the focus remains on technology and innovation, reinforcing Israel's status as a startup nation on the international stage. Israel's relationships with neighboring countries are crucial, especially in light of recent normalization agreements. Global attention on Israel's policies toward Palestinians and its regional security strategies is expected to grow. In terms of security threats, Hamas and Hezbollah remain prominent. Both groups are designated as terrorist organizations by countries including the United States and the European Union. Thank you for watching. Hey everyone, we just wanted to take a moment to say a huge thank you for tuning into our channel. Your support means the world to us. Whether you're a long-time subscriber or just discovered us, we appreciate every like, comment, and share. We're dedicated to bringing you more exciting content, so stay tuned for upcoming videos. If you have any suggestions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to let us know in the comments. Thanks again for being a part of our community.